This is Abdul. Abdul is a maize farmer. He and his wife Amina have 3 small children. Abdul has a small plot of land and he grows just enough maize each year to feed his family. When the rains are good, he sells the surplus production on the local market so he can pay for the children's school and health care. Abdul depends on his maize production to care for his family. His maize depends on good rains, which makes Abdul vulnerable to shocks such as droughts or flood. If something happened to his maize, his family would go hungry and his children might have to leave school. He would fall off the cliff of food insecurity and poverty. This year, the rains stopped too early. The lack of water meant that Abdul didn't harvest any maize. This puts Abdul in a crisis situation, as he doesn't have any savings or small animals he can sell. Ideally, Abdul's government should provide a safety net to protect vulnerable smallholder farmers like Abdul from falling. But just like in many developing countries, Abdul's government doesn't prioritize protecting people from shocks when allocating funds. This is where humanitarian and development agencies can step in. Using a gap analysis helps us understand how much assistance is required to cover affected households' needs. We can provide the safety net Abdul needs, and the sooner, the better. Find the best way to support Abdul. We first need to understand the gap in terms of needs created by the shock. Emergency gap analysis measures the gap between what Abdul currently has access to and what he needs to support his family. We can then provide him with support to meet his basic needs and get back on his feet. A rapid market assessment is needed to see if basic commodities are available on local markets. If they are, humanitarian agencies can give Abdul cash or vouchers so that he can buy what he mostly needs. But even if Abdul receives limited assistance to buy maize to feed his family, or if he's lucky, also some livelihoods assistance to help him plant some maize during the next agriculture campaign, all it takes is poor rains and Abdul falls again. Humanitarian and development agencies should help vulnerable farmers like Abdul to prepare better for shocks. Organizations like Oxfam could join forces with local actors, for instance, and help build a small dam so that Abdul's water supply will be secure even in a drought. Such an intervention would reduce Abdul's heavy dependence on rainfall, thus contributing to addressing the chronic gap. It is about addressing the gap between what households have and what they need to protect themselves from shocks. It is a more long-term development approach that requires a good understanding of the causes that make smallholder farmers like Abdul vulnerable. A more in-depth analysis of the markets can help better understand the context and identify appropriate interventions. It moves Abdul from here to here. Such an intervention is a more effective way to support vulnerable people like Abdul, as emergency assistance might no longer be required, now that Abdul can produce more maize and has savings that can be used in case of difficult times. He is no longer standing on the edge of the cliff, and the risk of being food insecure is now a distant one.